Three, two, one. Okay. Shall we?
Got it going. Let's do it. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second event of the Neuro College Speaker Series. My name is John Bailey, and I'm a sophomore at Stanford.
My name is Kachan. I'm a first-year master at MIT. So we are glad to serve as moderators tonight. And we also have Jack and Grant from Stanford, Jolene from UC Berkeley, and Tony from Princeton in the Neuro College core team. So they will also be showing up as moderators in the coming events.
And in this Neuro College Speaker Series, we'll be introducing you to major players in neurotechnology, from professors and research scientists paving the way to CEOs and executives helping lead the way for this field.
So the purpose of this speaker series is to help you guys hear firsthand experience stories and what the neurotech specialists think are important to the neurotechnology space. So we want to give you an insider knowledge of how the industry works when there currently exists no majors in school or fixed career paths that serves that purpose, and to bring those more exposure to the field so that eventually more and more smart people will come work on these cutting-edge neurotech problems. So we will be inviting people and founders who have inspired us personally, and then we hope that eventually some of those inspirations and excitement could go home with you as you hear about the amazing things that we could achieve with BCI devices, as well as the people who help make them into reality.
Today, we will be hearing from Max Newlon, the US president of BrainCo, one of the leading players in the non-invasive neurotechnology space, to hear about the challenges in creating a neurotechnology company and the future of the field. And I'd just like to point out, as y'all may have seen on the flyers, we are also supposed to be joined by Dr. Wasifa Jamal, who's a senior research scientist at BrainCo. Unfortunately, she had a personal conflict come up, so she will not be here tonight. But nonetheless, we are super excited to hear from Max. And a quick reminder, if at any point you have questions that you'd like to ask Max, please send them to the panelists and we will do our best to relay them to Max. So with that being said, Max, take it away.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you organizing such a great event. It's always fun to share what we've learned over the past few years, trying to build something brand new. And I hope that it does connect and inspire some of the attendees to investigate the neurotech space and maybe even join a neurotech or start a neurotech company. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll kick this off. All right, can you guys see this? Cool. So like John was saying, yeah, my name's Max. I'm the president for BrainCo USA. Quick intro on my background. I studied cognitive science for my undergrad degree and didn't really know what I wanted to pursue after that. But sometime in high school, I became interested in meditation and the potential for what our minds could do, or if we developed our minds, what types of skills or perspectives would that unlock? And I carried that interest with me through college, studied psychology and philosophy, studied neuroscience as well. And when I graduated, I joined a fMRI research lab at Massachusetts General Hospital, and we were investigating the impact of yoga and meditation on the brain. So we put people in the scanner, have them do 8 weeks of meditation training, and then put them back in the scanner, do all these different types of fun experiments to see what was the impact of this brain training or this mind training. And at the same time, I was working at Beth Deaconess Medical Center, investigating the impact of deep brain stimulation surgery on people with Parkinson's disease and other movement disorders. So that's the invasive BMI side, the kind of stuff that we see Neuralink and some other companies working on. And after a few years in the research field, I went back to Harvard, got a master's degree in human development and psychology, and was really interested in leadership development, which again is another flavor of how people can develop themselves to achieve their goals, perform better, take new perspectives, etc. But I also had this job offer from this interesting company called BrainCo, and they had just started to develop this brand new type of technology, and I saw the vision for what they wanted to accomplish. And so I joined them as a research scientist, helped them formed their initial algorithms for neurofeedback training. And that was 4.5 years ago when there were about 15 of us in this little office in Somerville. Now there are 200 of us with offices in the US and China. So over the next few minutes, I want to share a bit more about who we are, what we build, a couple of the innovations in neurotech that we're seeing, and then if there's time, do a live demo of our latest product called FocusCalm. So the company BrainCo itself started in the Harvard Innovation Lab in 2015. And like I was mentioning, we've had quite a bit of growth since then. And at our core, we develop BMI tech. So, our mission is to connect your mind to the world around you. And we apply that expertise in technology in a few different ways. And at least for BrainCo USA, we focus on three main pillars, or three main, what we call business units. The first is in prosthetics. So applying BMI for high precision, highly accessible prosthetics for amputees. The second is in cognitive training, which is our FocusCalm brand, which I'll show you guys later. And then the third is really interesting too. We take those technologies from Brain Robotics and from FocusCalm and turn them into educational products to teach students or teach people about neuroscience, teach them about prosthetics, teach them about algorithms and what it's like to be a neuroscientist. And all the while, those products or those educational products are connected to our real applications. We're actually taking the work in prosthetics and connecting it to what you can do in the classroom or for people who are interested in learning about neuroscience. So I wanted to start with Brain Robotics. And what you guys are seeing here is an amputee whose name is Min Chung Ni, who lost both of his arms at a young age, pick these cups up. And it looks pretty easy. It looks pretty natural. And that's actually where the magic is. So in about 15 minutes of training, Min Chung is able to teach the hand what each individual finger movement should do based on his neural intention. So what the training might look like is on a computer or on an iPhone, we'll have Min Chung think about moving his index finger. And then we're picking up the neural signals that travel from his brain down to his residual limb and understanding this really subtle electrical signals that are coming out of his muscles. And we have him do that for about 15 minutes with his different fingers. And at the end of the training, he's able to control this hand with a lot of dexterity. And the interesting thing is, because we're saving that algorithm in the cloud, he just has to do that training once. He can take the hand off if he wants to, put it back on, and he'll be able to control it with the same level of dexterity. So this technology and our applications here have won us a lot of awards, including being featured on Time Magazine for 100 Best Inventions. We're a couple months away from FDA approval, so we'll be able to move from the testing phase into actually selling this and bringing this product to market for different amputees across the United States. And here's one more quick video I want to show you guys. So you can see the really precise individual finger control. Right now in prosthetics, kind of the state of the art is you might flex one way and that triggers a certain gesture. You might flex another way, that triggers a different gesture. But with our technology, what we've been able to do is give individual finger control, which really makes an impact on our users' lives. We're also able to help Captain Kerry Duvall, who was injured in Afghanistan, get more functionality back with our product, got featured in Washington Post. That was pretty cool. And then here's the neat thing that we did with our educational products. So the one on the left is what we sell to schools to teach them about neuroscience. And the one on the right, as you guys can tell, is the actual medical device. The one on the left served as a prototype for our real prosthetic. So what we've done is created a kit that students can build themselves with their hands, put together the circuit board, put together the algorithms on the computer so they can understand what it's like to actually build a product like this. And we've had a lot of success on the commercial side, selling this to schools all across the country and even internationally. The other side of the business is Headband Technology. We're using EEG to understand brainwave signals, and we've developed some unique algorithms to understand cognitive states like focus and relaxation. We've done studies with people with ADHD. We've done studies with people with autism. We've looked into the education space. You guys can see at the top here, we were featured on ESPN. We were helping these esports athletes learn how to better focus and control their mind to perform their best. So we've applied this technology in a lot of different ways. Our latest is called FocusCalm, And that's the demo that I'll do for you guys in a couple of minutes. We also turn this technology into educational kits. So the NeuroMaker brand has the prosthetic side, but also has the what we call NeuroMaker BCI. So we sell the headband plus our software to teach students about neuroscience, teach them about how to build these types of algorithms, do the different signal analysis, and we give them real problems that we're seeing in the marketplace and have them solve them. So for example, we work with a bunch of Formula One race car drivers. So we might give a problem to the students, something like, the Formula One race car drivers need to improve their performance, but they're experiencing a lot of anxiety before they race. How might you solve this problem? So we're really aiming for hands-on learning for students to understand what it's like to be a neuroscientist. Okay. The next section that I want to talk with you guys about is a couple of interesting innovations that we're seeing in the neurotech space. One of them is education optimization, and the other one is this question that we've been asking ourselves, which is what's going to come after meditation? We've seen this huge surge in meditation in the marketplace, but we think that there's actually an innovation to be had, or an optimization to be had, that can take it a little step further, and that's what I'll show you guys during the FocusComm demo. So as it relates to education optimization, this idea has been around for a long time in the BMI space, to use BMI to understand student engagement better, to optimize education outcomes. And recently we've had this partnership with this really great company in Brazil. They're one of the largest education companies in Brazil, called Somos, and also Google for Education and a couple other companies, to integrate our technology into an online learning platform, so that the platform is getting real-time information on what type of learner the student is, what type of content engages them the most, how can we personalize and optimize the content, the flow of content, the timing, the difficulty of the content, to keep students in that sweet spot, so that they're not overwhelmed by too difficult material and they're not underwhelmed by material that's maybe not challenging enough. All the while, you can also integrate different types of focus and relaxation training right into the online platform. So this is a really huge project that we're super excited about. And then the other innovation is around this question, what comes after meditation? And what we figured out was the same type of training that these elite level Formula One race car drivers are doing actually applies to almost everyone. So for the race car drivers, they're going 200 miles an hour for 2 hours at a time. And a little mistake can cost them the race, but it also could be quite dangerous for themselves. So not only do they need to be focused, but they need to conserve their mental resources so that they don't mentally burn out and make some mistake, in the last 10% of the race. And this idea of being efficient or economical with your mental resources, we realized is a really powerful concept. So we designed this product called FocusComm to train people's brains to be more focused and have a calmer mind. So we combine guided meditations. That's actually just the first step. And then we layer on top different neurofeedback training, different executive function training, to give people a variety of skills so that they can manage their mental resources, they can feel better, and they can also perform their best. So far we've seen some adoption in the corporate wellness space. We have some customers using this to help their employees feel better and perform better. We've seen a big uptake in the elite level athlete space. We work with different Olympic teams, and like I was mentioning, Formula One race car drivers. And then also in the general population, people who just want to de-stress and want to train their brains and see the impact of, say, meditation, or see the impact of all these different modalities that are starting to become popular. So that's the main thing that I want to share with you guys in my slides. Let's check how much time we have. And if you guys are okay, I can throw out FocusComm and show you guys for a couple minutes. Awesome. Now, you're going to have to forgive me. I've done this on Zoom before, and I have not found a way for there not to be a little bit of an echo, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that that this is as seamless as we can go. So let me go here. Okay. If you guys just give me one more second, I will hop back on. Zoom wanted me to pop out for a second and then reconnect. I don't know if you guys are seeing a way to get me up as a panelist. Let's see. It says Max Newlon will be rejoining the webinar as a panelist.
Yeah, Max, I think you currently have host privilege, so you would be the only one who's able to elevate your phone to panelist.
Wonderful. We trapped the incompetent person as the. Just kidding.
If you want to, you can make me host real quick, and I can elevate your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this funny thing that's happening, which is I'm 30 years old, but I'm already noticing this gap between my ability to navigate certain technological things when I used to look at people who are older than me and say, oh, why can't they do that? It's starting to happen.
Right.
John,
for someone who's been telling us about, leading, prostheses and neurotechnology, I'll cut you some slack.
I appreciate that. So John, are you listed under, oh, I see up here.
Analyst, yeah.
Got it. Make host.
Sweet. Cool. And then I will do attendees. Change role to panelist. So your phone should now.
Oh yeah, awesome.
There we go. And then if you want to, I can make your phone host if you'd like, so you can share content from there if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
There we go.
Cool. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. So can you guys also see me up here too? Cool. So here's the headband. It's an EEG device, so it's going to be reading the electrical activity coming from my brain. So the first thing I want you guys to notice is how quickly it connects and starts getting a signal. And instead of reading my alpha wave or beta wave, which might be different signals that you guys are familiar with, what we're doing is looking at 1,000 different features that in the raw EEG signal. And based on this model that we've developed, we're comparing my brain signals on a second-by-second basis to this model of what does a truly relaxed brain look like, and what does a truly active or high cognitive workload brain look like. I'll pop my screen back on just a second. Okay. Nice. So a really high score means my brain looks like I'm in a state of meditation or relaxation. And a low score means it looks like my brain's in a state of high cognitive workload. And my gears are really turning, or maybe I'm under some sort of duress, something like this. And the app is designed to measure your brain states as well as train your brain states. So we have these different programs that are designed with these specific purposes, like helping you get ready for your day. That's wake up wellness, preparing for sleep, winding down after a stressful day at work or school. And then we also have some programs for athletes, so focus for competition, etc. And in these programs, we combine guided meditations, neurofeedback games, and different executive function games to teach people to relax their mind, have them practice strengthening their ability to get into that mental state, and then also challenge them to stay calm under pressure. Because we think it's great to be able to relax and meditate. I meditate every day, it's awesome. But the world is chaotic. So how do we train people to enter that state even when they need to be on, or even when they need to be using their cognitive resources? We also deliver all these different types of analytics on terms of how you're progressing, how many minutes you're spending in this calm state. So a lot of people, when they meditate, they ask themselves, is this actually working? Is this actually doing anything? We can measure scientifically how many minutes you're spending in that relaxed state, as well as a bunch of other analytics in terms of app usage. And strangely enough, the most popular feature so far has been the tracker. So all the other features train your brain to get in these states. The tracker simply measures your focus calm score over time while you do whatever task you want. Maybe it's your emails, maybe it's your own meditations, maybe it's cooking, who knows? But people seem to be really fascinated with this idea of experimenting and seeing what their brain activity is like while they're doing their daily activities. So you can record your focus calm score over time, and then at the end of the session, write a little note, and you'll get a report on how quickly you're able to calm your mind, how deeply you're able to calm your mind. And so this notion has started to emerge, which is, can we help people build self-awareness and understanding of all different aspects of their life through this type of data that we're capturing through Focus Calm? So let me show you guys a little bit how this works. So if I try to relax my mind a little, oh, maybe I need a bit more practice getting into that state. But I did want to show you guys this results page. So we're tracking different things like your experience points, how deeply you're relaxing your mind, how quickly, etc. So after each of these experiences, you get some sort of data on how you're doing. So again, the idea is that we can measure these brain states, we can train these brain states, and we can also track improvement over time. Okay, how am I doing on time? Good?
Yep.
Fascinating.
Cool. So maybe I'll just spend one more minute then showing you guys a bit more content. So here we have these different neurofeedback games. So for example, soothing space, the more you relax your mind, the higher the rocket ship will go. Or the campfire game, where the more you relax your mind, the more the fire starts to grow, and then eventually you'll like melt a marshmallow. So we have all these like little games that that appeal to different people. In the wake up game, the more you relax your mind, the more the sun will start to rise. And all of these are geared towards helping you practice that skill of relaxation. And in the focus games, these ones are geared towards working memory, sustained attention, pattern recognition, decision making. And again, the concept here is you need to perform well at the task while also keeping your mind calm in order to get a high score. And that's reinforcing the skill of being calm under pressure. So, you know, all these games and things like this, we're adding new stuff every few weeks. We're currently selling this product. It's not too expensive. It's about $200 for the headband. And then there's some subscriptions. So if people want to play with this, it's pretty accessible. And like I was mentioning, not only does it do all this training for well-being, but I imagine there are people in the community that want to use it for experimentation. So actually we have some different universities using Focus Calm, even though it's this consumer product, as a research tool for pre-post measure for different types of interventions. So there seems to be a really robust use cases for this type of technology. Okay, I will stop sharing and then I'll see if I can set you back up, John, as the host.
Sweet. Thank you, Max. That was, wow, I'm blown away. That was excellent. As someone who also meditates daily, Focus Calm headband too, seems like it's definitely going on my Christmas list for this year. Thank you for that presentation. We're now going to move into some roundtable questions. So first, Coach Hung and I have a few pre-source questions, and then we will open it up to the audience. So continue to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A. But yeah, let's get started. Max, the question that I think about is, you know, when you have an EEG headband, you have so many different potential use cases for that technology. How did BrainCo kind of position themselves and choose kind of the cognitive training, wellness, productivity space as their main application of the headband?
That is such an awesome question, because we went through so many different iterations and so many different market explorations before we landed on this space. You know, we started with explorations in the education space. Like I was mentioning, we did research studies for applications for ADHD, and all of these are really good applications of neurotech. But what we learned was you need to balance a few different things. You need to balance what the technology is really good at. You need to balance, what type of market demand can you meet? And then also the resources that you have available to you through your network or through your company, you know, what's going to be a really good fit for your team and the skills that you have. So for example, if our team was made up of a bunch of child psychologists, I imagine we probably would have leaned towards ADHD. But because of these kind of network effects that we had, or these network connections that we had, in the sports space and also in the corporate wellness space, we figured that this was going to be a really good direction for us. The other thing to consider, for people who are interested in neurotech and maybe even starting companies is going towards the consumer space has certain pros and cons. Going towards the medical space, let's say if we wanted to treat autism or ADHD, which we don't do, has certain pros and cons. For example, if you want to treat a medical disease, you have to go through certain FDA approvals, which can take a lot of time and money. But then once you're in there, then that's a really big barrier to entry that you've overcome. Whereas in the consumer space, you can enter it a bit more quickly, but there are certain limitations in terms of what your marketing claims can be, as it should be. So, the way that we think about it and the way that I suggest people think about it is, what are you really good at, or your team really good at? What are your connections? How are your connections going to help you? Make sure that you match the right technology and the right form factor of the technology to the problem you want to solve. And if you do those things, then I think you'll have some success.
Yeah, thank you, Max, for showing all of your amazing products, and I believe the audience will greatly fall in love with them. So could you tell us a little bit, what do you say you have been the big breakthroughs in innovation your team has made to differentiate BrainCo's technology? So, there are a lot of companies like BCI companies emerging at this moment. So what's the differentiation of your products and great breakthroughs?
Yeah, there's a few. I think on the technical side, it really comes down to the algorithm. So a lot of people that we have talked to or even seen in the space, at least for EEG and neurofeedback and different cognitive measures, tend to use, or at least definitely used to use, different frequency bands like alpha, beta, gamma, delta, theta, things like this. And it makes sense. That's where a lot of the existing literature was. And it provides a pretty simple schema for understanding cognitive activity. So in that way, it can be attractive to start there. And that's where we started too. But over the past few years, we've developed much more advanced algorithms that take into consideration, over 1,000 different features in the raw signal per second to understand these cognitive states much more accurately and quickly. And what that means is we can provide a much better user experience. So if we were using some of these frequency band algorithms, I don't think it would quite click in terms of the user understanding that we were truly measuring these brain states. But because of the innovation in the algorithms, it allows us to have much more powerful applications of our technology. The same is true for the prosthetic, right? Like that's really what sets us apart. The mechanical design is fantastic. In fact, we were just doing some testings today that look like we have some mechanical design advantages over other competitors, but really the differentiator is in the algorithm and decoding the signals that are coming from the residual limb, the muscle signals, the EMG signals, and converting those into accurate commands. So for example, where some of our users during the testing phase, they hit 100% accuracy in terms of the desired gesture and then the actualized gesture. So I'd say the biggest differentiator on the technical side is our signal processing expertise. And then also on the market side, I don't think that people should underestimate the importance of really understanding how to market and sell a product well. We have some great people on our team that help us do that too.
Kind of a follow-on to that, Max. Discussing all that it takes to really innovate in this space. I imagine a lot of people in this audience either are wanting to join a team like that or start their own team. So I'd love for you to just at least broadly kind of touch on, what all does it take to create this sort of neurotechnology company? How do you get that talent? Who all do you need in the room when you're creating these things? Just kind of briefly go over that.
Sure. Yeah, I think the first place to start is to really clearly identify what problem you're trying to solve. So depending on the problem you're trying to solve, that's going to dictate the technology that you're going to want to use. Do you want to use FNIRS? Do you want to use EEG? Do you want to use EMG? Do you want it to be invasive or non-invasive, et cetera? So I think you really want to start with the problem you're trying to solve and then pick the right technology. And then you need the right people to help you build that technology. And there's a few ways to go about it. Especially at the earlier stages, it might be useful to use some off-the-shelf technology that maybe has some SDKs that you can tap into. So for example, our products, some of them have SDKs that we have partnerships with different companies that want to leverage what we've built to, say, optimize education, like in the example of Somos. So figuring out the problem, figuring out the right technology, maybe using some off-the-shelf stuff that already exists to validate your idea to see if there's really something there. And then, it's basically like solving a problem. Okay, if we want this technology, what type of engineer, what type of algorithm scientist, what type of designer do we need in the room with us to get this right? And I would, advise people to think about both from the technological point of view, but you also need to think about product design, right? People want to use a beautiful looking product. And then once you have that product, you're going to need someone to help you sell it. So you need someone with skills on the marketing and sales side. And then, as the company scales, they're just new doors open, new opportunities and new problems to solve start to evolve. But depending on where you are, that's going to dictate kind of what your next step should be.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you for mentioning the non-invasive and invasive technology. So a question that I think a lot of us may have is the difference between invasive and non-invasive BSI technologies. So as we know, BrainCo has taken the latter route. So as the leaders in the non-invasive domain, what do you think do you all see as both the advantages and limitations of the non-invasive approach, and how do you see then this dynamic shifting over time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So on the invasive side, obviously that's going to require some sort of surgery. So what does that mean? That probably means that you're going to be targeting people with a more severe problem or condition that they're trying to solve. So what does that mean? Probably means you're going to be going after medical populations. Okay, so we're probably thinking about FDA. We're probably thinking about people who have some severe neurological condition. So the population of people that we're going to be treating, might be smaller, but it's a really severe condition. It's in the medical space. That probably means that the price per unit, I guess it would be a way to say, it's going to be pretty high. It's going to be expensive. So it's going to be a smaller target. It's going to be targeting a more serious condition. But if you're working with the FDA and it's a medical device, the sale per unit is probably going to be pretty high. Now let's contrast that to the non-invasive side. Okay, no surgery needed. It means that it's going to appeal to a broader group of people. That means that it can be in the consumer space because it doesn't need to be a medical device. And that means you're probably going to be targeting things that are not super severe. So for example, we don't treat any medical condition. We help people learn to relax their minds and improve different focus abilities. And so the applications of that, or the consequences of that, means that we target people like athletes, we target corporate wellness, we target people who want to reduce their stress. So again, there's this consideration to be had in terms of what problem you're trying to solve, and does the technology fit the problem. So, when I was at Beth Israel and we were doing research on deep brain stimulation surgery, obviously that's an invasive BMI technology. It's clearly going to be regulated by the FDA. It targets this medical population, and there's a whole different model and system that's going to need to support those types of technologies. So again, it ties back to what impact do you want to have on the world? I think another way to think about this question is, what type of people do you want to serve? Or do you think that there's going to be some application on the invasive side versus non-invasive side that you want to pursue? And I think over time, they're going to start to blur the lines a little bit. As invasive technology becomes easier to use, more approachable, more acceptable, it will probably start to move towards more and more applications that might look or are looking in the direction of the consumer space. And as non-invasive technology improves and we can understand different cognitive states better, the non-invasive side is going to start to look in the direction of the medical side and be able to address more and more problems. But at its foundation, there are going to be some clear distinctions, advantages, disadvantages of each.
Totally. We have a couple questions, both in the Q&A box as well as the chat, that are kind of centered around the idea of how does the actual encoding and decoding process work, specifically for the brain robotics prosthetic hand. And I guess I would just love, even from a very high level, if you could describe, how does, physiological signals from one's user's body translate into, this very precise movement of these robotic fingers?
Sure. So The prosthetic that you guys saw in the video was our 8-channel version. So there are 8 sensors on the residual limb, or the part of the arm that's still left after the amputation or after the injury. And we're picking up the muscle signals. So when you flex your muscles are giving off these electrical signals. And so the sensors themselves are picking up on those electrical signals. And that's all it is. It's picking up electrical signals. So it's looking at how fast the electrical signals are hitting the sensor, how strongly they're hitting the sensor, so the amplitude of the signal. And based on the precise combination from these 8 different positions on the limb, we can start to understand what that person is trying to do. And the way we do that is by training a model. So what does training a model mean? It means we ask the user to think about pointing their index finger, and then we record from all 8 sites, what are the muscle signals that are being produced when the person thinks about pointing their finger? And then we have them think about pointing their middle finger, and so on and so on. And after about 15 minutes, we've captured enough data to accurately predict what that person wants to do. And every time we see that signature, or that precise signal that we've mapped onto what it means when the person's thinking about pointing their finger, then the prosthetic hand will actuate and it will point the finger. And what you can do is start to train it based on the strength of the signal, so the person can actually control how much they want to point the finger. Just like how your brain and your muscles work, your brain is telling your muscles to move in a certain way and to a certain degree by the strength of the signal that it's receiving. And so in a way, the armband is acting in a similar way. We're understanding the precise combination of signals coming out of the residual limb, and we're matching that to the model that we trained to understand what the person wants to do.
Great. So yeah, as you described this robotic arm, we all know that is very fantastic and is really a hard tech one. So, but as everyone knows, there should be a lot of trade-offs between, from the technology, pure technology, to the real products. And I believe in those experiments that you conduct in the process, you must also hear some feedbacks from the users, from test takers, and also maybe the product team, the design team. So what kind of, the considerations you've put into this process and what trade-offs you've made? Can you tell us a story about those stories?
Yeah. So we've done some incredible things with our technology that will never be products. Like, they are so cool. We did this experiment where we were controlling this big robot that was picking ping pong balls out of one cart and putting them into another one, just using your brain activity. And it was awesome to see. Or making a drone fly just by getting your brain into a meditative state. But those won't ever be products, even though they're really cool demos. So the distinction I draw in my mind is you can develop really cool technology that people like to see or might want to try once or twice, but it doesn't mean it's actually going to be a product. Products solve real problems. So the adventure or the exploration is, what can we do with this technology? And you can probably do 100 things, and maybe 5 of them solve a real problem. And maybe one of them your team's going to be really good at delivering at, based on the things we talked about before. So the trade-off is, do we want to develop really cool technology that does something interesting? Those things are really good for demos. Those things are really good for grabbing people's attention. Sometimes those things are really good for getting early investment, because it shows that your team has the capabilities to do these amazing things. But when it comes time to build a business model around delivering some value to your customers, the people that you want to help, you need to make sure that the technology that you developed, or take the technology that you developed and craft it in a way where it's delivering on the thing that those people need or want.
I love that. That was a great question, Coach Young. I really wish I could see a brain-controlled drone enter the market at some point. Hopefully the demand will be high enough in my lifetime. Kind of moving back towards the wearable EEG space. We've seen a lot of just general wearables emerge over the past few years, but we haven't seen that same widespread adoption for EEG headbands. So I'd love to know, kind of from your perspective, what are the primary obstacles for wearable EEGs becoming as commonplace as, say, an Apple Watch or a Fitbit?
I think there's a couple. One is starting to shift, but we've seen it shift over the past few years that I've been with the company, which is people, when they first see this, they go, "Oh my God, that's going to read my brain. I can't put that on my head." And you have to let people know that this technology is super safe. Right? It's a passive technology. It's only reading activity that your brain's naturally producing. There's nothing going into your brain. You can't read people's thoughts. You can't identify anyone like a fingerprint yet with this technology, nothing like that. So I think there are just some misconceptions about the technology that maybe put people off. And even if you get past those things, it's still a little new to put something on your head versus put something on your wrist. People have been wearing regular watches, I'm assuming for centuries. But putting something on your head, that's brand new. That's a brand new user behavior. So having people do that, I think, is another hurdle. And then the last piece is, I think more recently, BrainCo and the space in general has been developing as it relates to the algorithm improvement. And when you can really detect these cognitive states with high fidelity, it means you can deliver more value to your customers. So I think that, for example, we've been, we have our first several hundred users with Focus Calm, and the ones that we were testing it with, at least. And, they're telling us these incredible stories about how the headband is helping them understand their cognitive states in brand new ways, and how precise the algorithm feels when they're making these little changes in their mental state and they see their score change. And so I think the precision of the algorithm has unlocked this potential for much better applications. And more recently, some of our users have even told us there are certain features in the app that they feel, or they call, like, this is the killer app for neurotechnology. So I think it had to do with the form factor of the technology. I think it had to do with people becoming comfortable with using this type of technology, and it also had to do with the precision of the algorithms and what we do with that data to make sure that we're delivering on something that's valuable. I think that the advent of wrist-based wearables and the types of analytics that people have come to appreciate and rely on, I think people can start drawing analogies between that type of data and, let's say, the data that Focus Calm can deliver to.
And as a follow-on to that, something that we had a lot of questions actually from our RSCPs was about data and data privacy, not only with BrainCo specifically, but as we see neurotechnologies in general, permeate the market throughout our lifetimes. So I'd love to hear not only what BrainCo's thoughts on how do we protect data, what do we do with data, as well as what you see long term for similar companies, as well as just neurotechnology companies in general, with the data problem.
Yeah, I think that's a great question and something that we take super seriously. So internally, we have a data privacy team. And then every week we meet with our external data privacy consultancy team to make sure that we're staying on top of every little nuance about data privacy, week over week. And we've learned some important distinctions as it relates to the applications as well. So if you want a neurotech application in the education space, that's going to mean something different than if you want it in the elite level athlete space. You can imagine that the data privacy policies are going to be different in both of those markets. So we've learned a lot about the data privacy landscape and what it means to develop applications for each of these markets. So for example, we don't save any raw EEG data on our server. The type of data that we have on our server would be like the type of data that Candy Crush gets, like app usage, what games are you playing, how much time are you spending on the app, but we're not saving any raw EEG data. It's just not useful for us at this point in time. There's this misconception that you want or need millions of data points to develop these algorithms, but the truth is you want a set of really good data, and the way you get really good data is by controlling the research environment and doing it almost like in a research lab environment, which is how we developed our algorithms. So, from our perspective, what we want to do is deliver value to our users. We're not trying to, harvest data or things like this. And we're really mostly focused on helping people learn to relax and focus. And for the algorithm development, we do that in a more laboratory setting. I think more broadly, there needs to be this ongoing discussion. It's really healthy for us to be having these discussions about data privacy and data ethics, so that we can stay ahead of these issues as the technology develops. What we don't want to do is go so far down this road and then look back and think, we should have been having those conversations earlier, and then the genie's out of the bottle at that point. So at least from our perspective, and I've seen other companies take this really seriously too, which is a great thing, is the data ethics component of developing these neurotechnologies.
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, as you just mentioned, there are a lot of companies just focusing. You're actually talking about the BCI ecology. So if I can say that, so there are many companies may focus on different, very niche of the market. Maybe some may focus on the materials, some may focus on the mechanics, and we also have people like from the audience. They come from different backgrounds. So what do you think the key obstacles of them, like technically, like materials and mechanics, that other companies maybe can also co-work with BrainCo to solve those problems?
Mm-hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is the spectrum between the truth of what the engineering can do and what the science says, and we do our own research and partner with other research universities to really prove out what we're trying to do. We want to be a beacon of research and truth in terms of what this technology can and can't do, and respect those things while also pushing the boundaries and trying to develop new engineering techniques or styles or algorithm development so that we can expand the types of applications. But I think at the heart, it will be an engineering challenge.
Max, we've got both questions in the chat as well as some of the pre-source questions. I'm really curious on the actual algorithms that y'all use. I know that you've delved in a little bit to the technology, and I know obviously you can't delve all the way into the technology, but just for those who are interested in the more algorithm side of this technology, a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So one of the things that we haven't talked about is the focus comm algorithm, at least in detail. So I can give you guys a bit more scope in terms of how we developed that. So what we did was we had dozens of people do different relaxation practices using our hardware and measure their raw EEG signal. And then we had those same people do all these different types of high stress, high cognitive workload tasks, using research validated different measurements to get them into that cognitive state and then measure their raw EEG signal. And then we had our machine learning and AI algorithms look at all these different features in the raw signal and tell us what are the features that should be weighed heavily or not weighed heavily in trying to classify these different cognitive states. So when you are using focus comm and your score is really high, what that means is the signals that your brain's producing at that given moment match this model of a deeply relaxed brain based off of all of this data that we collected in a research setting of people doing these deeply relaxing practices or meditative practices. And when you're using focus comm and your score is really low, what that means is your brain at that given moment is matching this model of what a high stressed or high cognitive workload brain looks like, again, based off of all this data we collected in this research setting of people doing these high stress, high cognitive workload tasks. So we're basically matching your brain to these different templates of what does a relaxed mind look like versus what does a stressed or high cognitive workload mind look like. And the same would be true for almost anything else. So if someone was interested in measuring happiness, I don't know if anyone in the EEG space has done this well yet, but if you were interested in measuring happiness, what you'd need to do is come up with some probably clinically validated measures of happiness or stimuli that are clinically validated to incite happiness and measure the EEG signals while someone's in that state. And you could probably triangulate that state with maybe some other technology like facial recognition technology, or other types of neurotechnology that have also been validated to measure happiness. And when you know someone's in that state, you would look at the raw EEG signal and say, okay, like these features here are really standing out when all of these people are in the state of happiness. This is the pattern. And you'd compare that to some sort of control, and then you'd have an algorithm to measure happiness. So really anything that you want to measure, what you're really trying to do is come up with the best possible case of some sort of ground truth that, yes, these people are truly in a state of happiness, or maybe, yes, these people are truly asleep. Let's say if you're trying to measure sleep or different stages of sleep, yes, these people are truly in this state. To the best of our knowledge, we know they're in that state. What are the features that are being presented that match that state? And then you'd use that to create your algorithm of measuring these different cognitive states.
Thank you, Max, for answering. And we also got a follow-up question from the audience. So how did you overcome the challenge of EEG signals being highly varied between individuals?
Yeah. So when we were using the frequency band algorithms, we saw this this occur more frequently. So let's take one of the algorithms that we first learned about, and actually we've seen in some studies even more recently, the NASA engagement algorithm, which is beta power divided by alpha plus theta power. And what that's doing is taking three features: power of beta, the power of alpha, and the power of theta, and comparing them mathematically to say that we're measuring this cognitive state called engagement. So it's using three features to deduce this highly complex cognitive state called engagement. If you compare that to the approach that, say, we're using in Focus Calm and other algorithms, we're using over 1,000 features per second in a much more complicated mathematical formula. We're not using arithmetic, let's say, and we're using 300 times more features or 400 times more features to understand these cognitive states. So when you're using a more advanced algorithm, you end up with a much more robust algorithm that can handle the diversity between different individuals. The other thing is you also need to make sure that you're getting the right sample population for what you're trying to build. So for example, if you want to develop an algorithm for a particular population, you need to build your model with that particular population. So yeah, it comes down to how advanced your algorithm is, and also the development process and the protocol that you use to collect that data to build that algorithm. And both of those things can reduce the impact of inter-individual variability when you're building an EEG algorithm.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Max. We're going to wrap it up with two more questions. The first is just one of my favorites, and it's something that people always ask. You have a lot of undergraduates and younger students in this audience who are themselves one day hoping to either join a company like BrainCo or start their own. What advice would you give them based on your own experience, as well as your vision for how the industry is going to change within the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Okay, this is a important and multifaceted question. So I'll try to hit on the things that I think are important. Generally, when you are trying to join a company, I think the important thing is that you're, and I forget where I heard this. These are not my words, but I heard someone say, you want to be solving interesting problems with interesting people. So I think that if you can find that type of team, that's likely the team that's going to adapt their approach to do something meaningful. And I think at the end of the day, people want to be doing meaningful work, and people want to be doing good work. So I would advise people to find interesting people tackling interesting problems. If you're an undergrad, one of the things that kind of the maturation process that we've gone through, again, was this idea of moving from wanting to develop something really cool to developing something that solves a real problem. So I think that if you're interested in starting a company, you should try to figure out what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and get the right people in the room to solve that problem with neurotechnology, if neurotechnology is in fact the right tool to be using. And then the other part of your question was, if you're maybe looking for an internship or something like this, people who are perhaps in my position or in similar positions, we're impressed by people who have done their homework. So they're not just emailing us saying, hey, can I have an internship? You know, they've really researched what the company is doing, maybe try to intuit what are the issues that they might be facing, and maybe even in that reach out, providing some potential solution for how they can help solve the company's problems. Even if someone emailed me and they were totally wrong and we were not having that issue at all, I would just be impressed with the thoughtfulness that this person has gone through and the fact that they are not trying to get something from us. They're trying to help us solve some problem. And that way I know that if I'm going to work with that person, they're going to work hard to try to solve real problems that the company needs to solve and not just kind of come into the company to, not do that. So I would advise you guys to think deeply about the companies that you want to work with and figure out, can I actually move the needle on what these guys are doing? Can I demonstrate that I've done that in the past? You know, how can I line up my experience and perhaps limited work history with a problem that actually matters to these people and really show that you've done your homework? I think that's my advice.
Yeah, that's sick. Okay, so maybe the final question for this event, and is also a very interesting one. So as you just mentioned, you have a vision for to the future of the neurotechnologies. So what might in your mind are the most excited to see, and what gets you up in the morning?
So this is the trend that we see and that I think a lot of BMI is based off of. So, years ago, we were using dial phones to make phone calls. And, we still use keyboards, I guess, too, but it's all kind of like manual analog type of stuff or more analog type of stuff. And then we had touch screens. So now the interaction between humans and technology starts to become a bit more seamless. And now we have voice activated technology, Alexa and Siri and things like this. So now it's becoming a bit more seamless. And believe it or not, the next iteration is going to be using our minds to directly interface with technology. So this is the long-term trend that BCI or BMI is based off of. How can we seamlessly integrate neurotechnology between humans and the world that we live in to make our lives better? Or what other types of applications are going to be possible when we can interface more seamlessly with the world around us? So this is the long-term trend. And then as you're going down this trend, there are going to be certain innovations that occur that allow you to solve real problems for real people. So for example, as this trend has started to develop, we figured out that we could actually turn part of this trajectory into a prosthetic device that delivered better precision, more accessibly for amputees. And so then we build a business around that. And then we're kind of continuing this trajectory. And then we figured out once there was enough development on the EEG algorithm side, we could really accurately detect these cognitive states, and we're able to develop a product like Focus Calm. And so then the trajectory will continue. So as the thing that kind of gets me up in the morning, that's the most inspiring, is that we're on this long-term trajectory to change how people interact with the world around them so that everything can be more seamless. And along the way, we're creating these solutions that solve real problems for real people. So that's the kind of the long-term vision that I see for BMI, and I think is the most promising and most exciting component of what we do.
Beautiful. I could not think of a better way to finish off that session. Thank you so much, Max. That was awesome, really. To everyone in the audience, we are going to have a super quick 10 to 15 minute after party Zoom. I believe Coach Hung has sent it in the chat. So if you'd like to stick around, talk about BrainCo and what Max has told us about, as well as maybe ask Max some questions, feel free to join that link. If not, hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for coming. And once again, check the chat again for the type form. We'd love to have you on our email list so you can come to more awesome events like this. So with that being said, thank you so much, Max. See you in the after party Zoom.
Sounds good. See you guys in a second. Yeah.